So 250 years ago, right now, the revolution was well underway. The American Revolution had been started. The Continental Congress was meeting in this building, Independence Hall. And one thing I've been doing every day is just checking letters that the Founding Fathers wrote back and forth to each other. So I figured I'd check today and see if I find anything interesting and share it with you. I've got my laptop right here. So I'm gonna be looking down and checking for letters. Okay, good morning. Today is 23rd of July, we're gonna read the letters from the 23rd of July, 1775. There are 8 documents, and I took a little look at them beforehand, just clicked through them, and there are quite a few long ones, so we're gonna get through as many as we can. We have our work cut out for us this morning. And we may finish up at home later, but let's see what we can do. We have 2 letters from John Adams to his wife, Abigail Adams. Those are going to be interesting follow-ups to her previous letters. From John Adams to William Tudor, and from John Adams to James Warren. So 4 letters from John Adams, general orders as usual, and then 2 letters from General Washington, one to Brigadier General John Thomas, and one to James Warren, and then an enclosure of Benjamin Church to John Fleming. Let's begin with general orders. General orders, 23rd of July, 1775, headquarters Cambridge, countersign Princeton. Countersign Princeton, interesting. Princeton, New Jersey. Okay, parole, Brunswick. Yeah, that's New Jersey. Parole, Brunswick. As the Continental Army have unfortunately no uniforms, and consequently many inconveniences must arise from not being able always to distinguish the commissioned officers from the non-commissioned officers. Sorry, let me reread this. From not being able always to distinguish the commissioned officers from the non-commissioned, and the non-commissioned from the private. Oh, break time. My apologies, I had to put on some bug spray because I was attracting some unwanted visitors. Let's begin this whole letter again. Parole, Brunswick. As the Continental Army have unfortunately no uniforms, and consequently many inconveniences must arise from not being able always to distinguish the commissioned officers from the non-commissioned, and the non-commissioned from the private, it is desired that some badges of distinction may be immediately provided. For instance, the field officers may have red or pink colored cockades in their hats, the captain's yellow or buff, and the subalterns green. They are to furnish themselves accordingly. The sergeants may be distinguished by an epaulette, or a stripe of red cloth, sewed upon the right shoulder, the corporals by one of green. The people employed to make spears are desired by the general to make 4 dozen of them immediately, 13 feet in length, and the wood part a good deal more substantial than those already made, particularly in the New Hampshire lines. 13 feet in length, and the wood part a good deal more substantial than those already made, particularly in the New Hampshire lines, are ridiculously short and light, and can answer no sort of purpose. No more are therefore to be made on the same model. Okay. The commanding officers of the different works and posts are once more enjoined to furnish themselves with a sufficient number of gabions and fascines, which are to stop up the entrances of their respective redoubts and lines, and to repair their works, which may either be damaged by the weather or the fire of the enemy. It is observed that several of the entrances of the redoubts are still left open without any sort of defense, The commanding officers of each redoubt are therefore ordered to cut a wide, deep ditch at the entrances and throw a bridge of strong plank across. This is to be done without delay. John Davis of Captain Foster's company in Colonel Gridley's regiment of artillery, tried for, quote, desertion and suspicion of intending to go to the enemy, end quote, is acquitted by the General Court-Martial. Ensign Tafton, accused by Colonel Scammons of, quote, abusive language to the said Colonel Scammons while under arrest, end quote, tried by General Court-Martial, of which Colonel Nixon was president. The court are unanimously of opinion that the prisoner is not guilty and do therefore acquit him with honor. Lieutenant Trafton, to be forthwith released from arrest. Michael Bury, Captain Parker's company, and Colonel Prescott's regiment, tried by the same General Court-Martial for, quote, refusing his duty and enlisting in another company, end quote. The court condemned the prisoner and ordered him to receive 39 lashes. The general orders the sentence to be put in execution at the head of the regiment the delinquent belongs to. Footnote number 1. For the insignia that was designated for general officers and aides-de-camp, see General Orders 14th and 24th of July, 1775. We read the one from 14th of July already, and you can go to the General Orders for the 24th of July tomorrow when we get to it. Just click to those videos on my channel and you'll see them. Footnote number 2, for George Washington's previous instructions regarding gabions and fascines, see General Orders 18th of July, 1775. Again, you can click to those and watch those videos at your pleasure. Footnote number 3, Thomas Waite Foster of Massachusetts served as an artillery captain in the Continental Army until the end of 1776. Footnote number 4, Joshua Tafton of Massachusetts was tried in August for another altercation with Colonel James Scammons and was found guilty. Tafton, nevertheless, continued to serve in Scammons' regiment until the end of the year and was promoted to lieutenant in Colonel John Patterson's regiment on 1st of January 1776. In June 1777, Tafton became a captain in Colonel Henry's Sherburne's additional Continental Regiment, where he remained until he resigned from the Army in April 1780. For Scammons' arrest and court-martial, see General Orders 12th and 18th of July, 1775. You can see those videos at your pleasure. Footnote number 5, Captain Oliver Park of Massachusetts was cashiered on 2nd of August, 1775. And there are references to letters. You can find those in the future videos when we get to them. Okay, let's start with some of these longer letters. Maybe this first one from George Washington to Brigadier General John Thomas, 23rd of July, 1775. Now, I have pulled up a map of the siege of Boston here because in the last video it was quite helpful to have this available. Let's just go through it again before we start this letter, in case it's helpful. I don't know yet, but you can see that Cambridge is here. And then the Continental front lines are here. Bunker Hill is here across from Charlestown, which was burned by the British, and then Boston is down here. And you know, at this time, Boston was basically this peninsula with a tiny little access point called the Boston Neck on a spit of land that connected Boston to the mainland. And all of what is now Back Bay was mostly a swamp. So the Charles River kind of came in like this. The front lines were here and then sort of stretched up this way into Everett and Malden and Chelsea. So that's the general lay of the land of colonial Boston. And Roxbury is somewhere down here off the map. And so the whole Continental line sort of stretched in an arc like that around the core of Boston, which was occupied by the British, Boston Harbor. Okay, now let's begin. I don't know if that will be helpful. I haven't looked ahead, but let's hope that was helpful. Okay, to Brigadier General Thomas, Cambridge, July 23rd, 1775. Sir, the retirement of a general officer possessing the confidence of his country and the army at so critical a period appears to me to be big, with fatal consequences both to the public cause and his own reputation. While it is unexecuted, I think it my duty to make this last effort to prevent it. And after suggesting those reasons which occur to me against your resignation, your own virtue and good sense must decide upon it. In the usual contests of empire and ambition, the conscience of a soldier has so little share that he may very properly insist upon his claims of rank and extend his pretensions even to punctilio. But in such a cause as this, where the object is neither glory nor extent of territory, but a defense of all that is dear and valuable in life, surely every post ought to be deemed honorable in which a man can serve his country. What matter of triumph will it afford our enemies that in less than 1 month a spirit of discord should shew itself in the highest ranks of the army, not to be extinguished by anything less than a total desertion of duty? How little reason shall we have to boast of American union and patriotism if at such a time and in such a cause smaller and partial considerations cannot give way to the great and general interest? These remarks can only affect you as a member of the great American body, but as an inhabitant of Massachusetts Bay, your own province and the other colonies have a peculiar and unquestionable claim to your service, and in my opinion you cannot refuse them, without relinquishing some degree that character for public virtue and honor which you have hitherto supported. If our cause is just, it ought to be supported. But where shall it find support, if gentlemen of merit and experience, unable to conquer the prejudices of a competition, withdraw themselves in an hour of danger? I admit, sir, that your claim and services have not had due respect. It is by no means a singular case. Worthy men of all nations and countries have had reason to make the same complaint, but they did not for this abandon the public cause. They nobly stifled the dictates of resentment and made their enemies ashamed of their injustice. And can America show no such instances of magnanimity? For the sake of your bleeding country, your devoted province, your charter rights, and by the memory of those brave men who have already fell in this great cause, I conjure you to banish from your mind every suggestion of anger and disappointment. Your country will do ample justice to your merits. They already do it by the sorrow and regret expressed on the occasion and the sacrifice you are called to make. Will, in the judgment of every good man and lover of his country, do you more real honor than the most distinguished victory. Gosh, I can't read that without tearing up a little bit, choking up. Okay. You possess the confidence of affection of the troops of this province particularly. Many of them are not capable of judging the propriety and reasons of your conduct. Should they esteem themselves authorized by your example to leave the service, the consequences may be fatal and irretrievable. There is reason to fear it from the personal attachments of the men to their officers and the obligations that are supposed to arise from those attachments. But sir, the other colonies have also their claims upon you. not only as a native of America, but an inhabitant of this province. They have made common cause with it. They have sacrificed their trade, loaded themselves with taxes, and are ready to spill their blood in vindication of the rights of Massachusetts Bay, while all the security and profit of a neutrality has been offered them. But no arts or temptations could seduce them from your side and leave you a prey to a cruel and perfidious ministry. Sure, these reflections must have some weight with a mind as generous and considerate as yours. How will you be able to answer it to your country and your own conscience if the step you are about to take should lead to a division of the army or the loss and ruin of America be ascribed to measures which your counsels and conduct could have prevented? Before it is too late, I entreat, sir, you would weigh well the greatness of the stake and upon how much smaller circumstances the fate of empires has depended. Of your own honor and reputation, you are the best and only judge. But allow me to say that a people contending for life and liberty are seldom disposed to look with a favorable eye upon either men or measures whose passions, interests, or consequences will clash with those inestimable objects. As to myself, sir, be assured that I shall with pleasure do all in my power to make your situation both easy and honorable, and that the sentiments here expressed flow from a clear opinion that your duty to your country, your posterity, and yourself most explicitly require your continuance in the service. The order and rank of the commissions is under the consideration of the Continental Congress, whose determination will be received in a few days. It may argue a want of respect to that august body not to wait the decision, but at all events I shall flatter myself that these reasons with others which your own good judgment will suggest, I will strengthen your mind against those impressions which are incident to humanity and laudable to a certain degree, and that the result will be your resolution to assist your country in this day of distress, that you may reap the full reward of honor and public esteem which such a conduct deserves, is the sincere wish of, sir, your very obedient and humble servant, George Washington. Wow. That was not what I expected it to be at all. For background to this letter, see James Warren to Joseph Hawley to George Washington, 4th of July, 1775, number 1. We read that letter, so you can go back to the video from 4th of July and listen to it. James Warren wrote to Thomas on 22nd of July, urging him not to resign, as did Major General Charles Lee on the 23rd of July. Those letters were not apparent to me, I don't think. I don't remember reading them yesterday, but... Thomas, footnote number 1, Thomas's new commission as 1st Brigadier General, which Congress approved on 19th of July, arrived at Cambridge by 4th of August. Wow, that was really something. It's hard for me to read those letters sometimes from George Washington without getting a little choked up, you know. He was such a noble man, and despite his flaws that history has revealed, that we all know about, he still has such a powerful vision of what this country is about, and he's away with words, that's for sure. So, as expected, I've run out of time to read the rest of the letters, so we're going to read the rest at home. But I wanted to show you Independence Hall because today they're working on the windows and they're restoring the main picture window. So it's kind of interesting to see them work on it. Here you go. Let's see here. Yeah, so they're doing some work on the windows. Earlier they did all these side windows, and now they're doing the main picture window in the stairwell that leads up to the second floor. Beautiful. Okay, we'll continue with the letters now and finish them off at home. Okay, now let's do from George Washington to James Warren, 23rd of July, 1775. To James Warren, Cambridge Camp, July 23rd, 1775. Sir, I have had an application made to me this day by the several captains of Colonel Finney's regiment from Casco Bay. They represent that they are men enlisted and have marched down upon a promise that they should receive 40 advance and billeting money and 8D. That's an interesting symbol. Maybe pennies a day? I don't know. 8DP day. That under this expectation, they left their families destitute and have detained the teamsters to carry back their money. They have met with some disappointments arising from the situation of the assembly, which has raised an unhappy spirit in the regiment and requires immediate attention. You will therefore please to lay the matter before the general court, with my request that proper steps may be taken to satisfy them, as I have engaged that upon their passing muster they shall receive the usual and legal allowance. I have the honor to be, sir, your very humble servant. Footnote number 1. Colonel Edmund Finney raised his regiment in Cumberland County, District of Maine, and marched it to Cambridge sometime in July after failing to obtain permission to leave all or part of his men at home to guard the coast against possible British raids. On 24th of July, the Massachusetts House of Representatives resolved, quote, that Major Stephen Cross be appointed to muster and pay the advance pay to the non-commissioned officers and soldiers of Colonel Finney's regiment, end quote. Finney commanded the regiment until he retired from the army at the end of 1776. For subsequent efforts to complete the paying of advance money to all of the Massachusetts troops, see General Orders 1st of August 1775 and Committee of the Massachusetts Council to George Washington 11th of August 1775. And at some point we will read those general orders and document. Probably we'll read that document, so you can go into the future. In the future, you can go forward and find those videos where I read those, if you wish. Next, let's read Enclosure, Benjamin Church to John Fleming. Enclosure, Benjamin Church to John Fleming, 23rd of July, 1775. This is quite a long one, so okay, here we go. I hope this will reach you. 3 attempts have I made without success in effecting the last. The man was discovered in attempting his escape, but fortunately my letter was sewed in the waistband of his breeches. He was confined a few days, during which time you may guess my feelings. But a little art and a little cash settled the matter. 'Tis a month since my return from Philadelphia. I went by the way of Providence to visit mother. The committee for warlike stores made me a formal tender of 12 pieces of cannon, 18 and 24 pounders, they having to a previous resolution to make the offer to General Ward. They having to a previous resolution. Okay, there's a footnote. We'll get to that. To make a merit of my services, I sent them down, and when they received them, they sent them to Staunton to be out of danger, even though they had formed the resolution, as I before hinted, of fortifying Bunker's Hill, which together with the cowardice of the clumsy Colonel Garish and Colonel Scammon was the lucky occasion of their defeat. This affair happened before my return from Philadelphia. We lost 165 killed then, and since dead of their wounds. 120 now lie wounded. The chief will recover. They boast you have 1,400 killed and wounded in that action. You say the rebels lost 1,500. I suppose with equal truth. The people of Connecticut are raving in the cause of liberty. A number from this colony, from the town of Stanford, robbed the king's stores at New York. With some small assistance the New Yorkers lent them. These were growing turbulent. I counted 280 pieces of cannon and 24 to 3-pounders at Kingsbridge, which the committee had secured for the use of the colonies. The Jerseys are not a whit behind Connecticut in zeal. The Philadelphians exceed them both. I saw 2,200 men in review there by General Lee, consisting of Quakers and other inhabitants in uniform, with 1,000 riflemen and 40 horse, who together made a most warlike appearance. I mingled freely and frequently with the members of the Continental Congress. They were united. I mingled freely and frequently with the members of the Continental Congress. They were united, determined in opposition, and appeared assured of success, now to come home. The opposition is become formidable. 18,000 men, brave and determined, with Washington and Lee at their head. Let me start that over. The opposition is become formidable. 18,000 men, brave and determined, with Washington and Lee at their head, are no contemptible enemy. Adjutant General Gates is indefatigable in arranging the army. Provisions are very plenty. Clothes are manufacturing in almost every town for the soldiers. 20 tons of powder lately arrived at Philadelphia, Connecticut, and Providence. Upwards of 20 tons are now in camp. Saltpeter is made in every colony, powder mills are erected and constantly employed in Philadelphia and New York. Volunteers of the first fortunes are daily flocking to the camp. 1,000 riflemen in 2 or 3 days. Recruits are now levying to augment the army to 22,000 men. 10,000 militia are appointed in this government to appear on the first summons. The bills of all the colonies circulate freely and are readily exchanged for cash. Add to this that unless some plan of accommodation makes place immediately, these harbors will swarm with privateers. An army will be raised in the middle provinces to take possession of Canada. For the sake of the miserable, convulsed empire, solicit peace, repeal the acts, or Britain is undone. This advice is the result of warm affection to my king and to the realm. Remember, I never deceived you. Every article here sent you is sacredly true. The papers will announce to you that I am again a member for Boston. You will there see our motley council. A general arrangement of officers will take place except the chief, which will be suspended but for a little while to see what part Britain takes in consequence of the late continental petition. A view to independence grows more and more general. Should Britain declare war against the colonies, they are lost forever. Should Spain declare against England, the colonies will declare a neutrality, which will doubtless produce an offensive and defensive league between them. For God's sake, prevent it by a speedy accommodation. Writing this has employed a day. I have been to Salem to reconnoiter, but could not escape the geese in the capital. Tomorrow I set out for the new port on purpose to send you this. I write you fully, it being scarcely possible to escape discovery. I am out of place here by choice, and therefore out of pay, and determined to be so unless something is offered in my way. I wish you could contrive to write me largely in cipher by the way of Newport, addressed to Thomas Richards Murched, enclose it in a cover to me intimating that I am a perfect stranger to you, but being recommended to you as a gentleman of honor, you took the liberty to enclose that letter, entreating me to deliver it as directed, the person, as you are informed, being at Cambridge. Sign some fictitious name. This you may send to some confidential friend at Newport, to be delivered to me at Watertown. Make use of every precaution, or I perish. A true copy compared by Alicia Porter. Copy. For the dating of this letter, see the Connecticut Current. In 5th of February, 1776, for discussions of its discovery and deciphering. Council of War, 3rd of October, 1775, and George Washington to Hancock on 5th of October. We'll get to those, so you can skip forward into the future and find those discussions as you please. This letter contains several misstatements of fact. See John Adams to James Warren, 18th of October, 1775, in Taylor. We'll read that as well, if possible. So you can go to that date and find that video where I read it. Footnote number 1. On 16th of May, the Massachusetts Provincial Congress ordered the Church to carry a letter to the Continental Congress, requesting advice on the establishment of a civil government in Massachusetts, and to confer with Congress, quote, respecting such other matters as may be necessary to the defense of this colony, and particularly as to the state of the army therein. Church apparently left for Philadelphia on 25th of May and returned between 18th and 20th of June. His mother, Hannah Dyer Church, was at Taunton, Massachusetts. Footnote number 2. Samuel West's translation of this letter in etc. reads, took. Oh, okay, so that's what was missing up here when I stumbled. They having took a previous resolution to make the offer to General Ward. Okay. Footnote number 3. Bands of radical patriots raided the Royal Depot at Turtle Bay on the nights of 7th and 8th of June and 20th July. Footnote number 4. Church represented Boston in the House of Representatives, which convened on 19th of July. The House elected a new council on 21st of July, and a week later authorized the council to act as governor of the colony. For the Continental Congress's address of the 8th of July to the inhabitants of Great Britain, see, etc. Now, I just want to note, as a Philadelphian, it makes me very proud that he said that we Philadelphians were more zealous than those in Boston and Connecticut. Let me see where he says that. Or the Jerseys, New Jersey. Okay, so the Jerseys are not a whit behind Connecticut in zeal. The Philadelphians exceed them both. Go Philly. Next, let's read from John Adams to William Tudor, 23rd of July, 1775. To William Tudor. Dr. Sir, we live in times when it is necessary to look about us and to know the character of every man who is concerned in any material branch of public affairs, especially in the army. There will be a large number of volunteers in the army, perhaps. Certainly there will be many young gentlemen from the southern colonies at the camp. They will perhaps be introduced into places such as aide-de-camp, brigade majors, secretaries, and deputies in one department or another. I earnestly entreat you to make the most minute enquiry after every one of these, and let me know his character, for I am determined I will know that army, and the character of all its officers. I swear I will be a faithful spy upon it for its good. I beg you would let me know what is become of Colonel Gridley and Mr. Burbanks, and whether they have lost their character as engineers and gunners, and let me know what engineers there are in the army, or whether there are none. I want to know if there are any engineers in the province, and who they are. I have heard the generals were much disappointed in not finding engineers and artillery as they expected. Please let me know the truth of this, if you can learn it, and how they come to expect a better artillery than they found. All this keep to yourself. I am, etc. Footnote number 1. Richard Gridley, a former officer in the British Army, at the time of this letter was Chief Engineer and Colonel of Artillery, appointed such by the Provincial Congress in April and June. He had directed the fortifications of Breed's Hill and was wounded in the Battle of 17th June. In September, he was appointed Colonel of Artillery for the Continental Army, but because of age was replaced by Henry Knox in November. He did, however, retain his post of Chief Engineer until August 1776, and in that capacity oversaw construction of fortifications on Dorchester Heights. From January 1777 to December 1780, he served as Engineer General of the Eastern Department. Major William Burbank was second in command in Gridley's artillery regiment. Okay, footnote number 2. See comments on General Lee in John Adams to Josiah Quincy, 29th July, which I read, so you can go back to that letter on the video I made on 29th of July and give that a read. Next, from John Adams to James Warren, 23rd of July, 1775, Philadelphia. Dear Sir, or Dr. Sir, I have many things to write you, which through haste and confusion I fear I shall forget. Upon the receipt of General Washington's letter, the motion which I made some days before for appointing General Thomas first Brigadier was renewed and carried, so that the return of the express will carry his commission. I hope that this will give all the satisfaction which is now to be given. You ask me upon what principle we proceed in our first arrangement. I answer upon the principle of an implicit compliance with the order in which the general officers were chosen in our provincial congress last fall. Not one of us would have voted for the generals in the order in which they were placed, if we had not thought that you had settled the rank of every one of them last fall in provincial congress, and that we were not at liberty to make any alteration. I would not have been so shackled, however, if my colleagues had been of my mind. But in the case of the Connecticut officers, we took a liberty to alter the rank established by the colony, and by that means made much uneasiness, so that we were sure to do mischief, whether we conformed or deviated from colony arrangements. I rejoice that Thomas had more wisdom than Spencer or Worcester, and that he did not leave the camp, nor talk imprudently. If he had, we should have lost him from the continental service. For I assure you, Spencer, by going off, and Worcester, by unguarded speeches, have given high offense here. It will cost us pains to prevent their being discarded from the service of the continent with indignation. Gentlemen here had no private friendships, connections, or interests which prompted them to vote for the arrangement they made, but were influenced only by a regard to the service, and they are determined that their commissions shall not be despised. I have read of times, either in history or romance, when great generals would cheerfully serve their country as captains or lieutenants of single companies, if the voice of their country happened not to destine them to an higher rank. But such exalted ideas of public virtue seem to be lost out of the world. Enough of this. I have labored with my colleagues to agree upon proper persons to recommend for a quartermaster general, a commissary of musters, and a commissary of artillery, but in vain. The consequence has been that the appointment of these important and lucrative officers is left to the consequence has been that the appointment of these important and lucrative officers is left to the general, against every proper rule and principle, as these offices are checks upon us. This is a great misfortune to our colony, however. I hope that you and others will think proper persons and recommend them to the general. Think of proper persons and recommend them to the general. There is, my friend, in our colony a great number of persons, well qualified for places in the army, who have lost their all by the outrages of tyranny, whom I wish to hear provided for. Many of them will occur to you. I beg leave to mention a few. Henry Knox, William Bant, young Hitchborne, the lawyer William Tudor, and Perez Moreton. These are young gentlemen of education and accomplishments in civil life as well as good soldiers, and if at this time initiated into the service of their country, might become in time and with experience able officers. If they could be made captains or brigade majors, or put into some little places, at present I am very sure their country would lose nothing by it, in reputation or otherwise. A certain delicacy which is necessary to a good character may have prevented their making any applications, but I know they are desirous of serving. I must enjoin secrecy upon you, in as strong terms as Mr. Hutchinson used to his confidential correspondence, and then confess to you that I never was since my birth so completely miserable as I have been since the 10th of April. Bad health, blind eyes, want of intelligence from our colony, and above all the unfortunate and fatal divisions in our own seat in Congress, which has lost us reputation, as well as many great advantages which we might otherwise have obtained for our colony, have made me often envy the active hero in the field, who, if he does his own duty, is sure of applause, though he falls in the execution of it. It is a vast and complicated system of business which we have gone through, and we were all of us unexperienced in it. Many things may be wrong, but no small proportion of these are to be attributed to the want of concert and union among the Massachusetts delegates. We have passed a resolution that each colony make such provision as it thinks proper and can afford for defending their trade in harbors, rivers, and on the sea coast against cutters and tenders. We have had in contemplation a resolution to invite all nations to bring their commodities to market here, and like fools have lost it for the present. This is a great idea. What shall we do? Shall we invite all nations to come with their luxuries, as well as conveniences and necessaries, or shall we think of confining our trade with them to our own bottoms, which alone can lay a foundation for great wealth and naval power? Pray think of it. I rejoice that the generals and Colonel Reed and Major Mifflin are so well received. My most respectful compliments to them all. I thank you and Mrs. Warren 1,000 times for her kind and elegant letter. Entreat your continuance of her favors in this way. To your old friend. Footnote number 3. At the outbreak of the Revolution, Joseph Spencer and David Worcester were brigade and major general, respectively, in the Connecticut forces. As the Congress on 19th of June appointed Israel Putnam at the 4th major general in the Continental Army over Spencer and Worcester, Putnam's superiors in the colony's service both were outraged. Spencer left his post at Roxbury and returned to Connecticut. It took a major effort to reconcile him to his position, but eventually he returned to the army and was appointed a major general in August 1776. Worcester, the only major general in the service of a colony who was not raised to his full rank in the Continental Army, did not leave the army, but his quarrels with Generals Schuyler in New York and Arnold in Quebec raised questions about his fitness for command. The actions of the Congress in regard to the Connecticut officers probably created more serious problems than did those in regard to Massachusetts officers complained of by Warren, Gary, and others. Just a quick footnote of my own here to add. Basically what happened is in Connecticut, you have to remember, had a lot of aristocratic gentlemen in their militia. You know, Benedict Arnold is a famous example. These were men who were well educated. They were very wealthy, usually from good families in Connecticut, and so they had this air of reputation about them that they felt was often disrespected by other colonies or powers like the Continental Congress. So, for instance, Arnold felt he was passed over for command by the Continental Congress in favor of Washington, or some such. And so what happened here is basically Spencer and Worcester, they served above Putnam in the Connecticut Army, in the Connecticut militia. They served at a higher rank, but the Continental Congress didn't know that, or somehow this was confused, and they accidentally appointed Israel Putnam, to a higher rank than in the Continental Army than Spencer and Worcester. And Spencer and Worcester had their pride, and they weren't going to let some subordinate give them orders. So Spencer quit, and Worcester, he didn't quit, but he caused problems, right? Because his pride was hurt. So eventually, I believe Putnam pretty much didn't really even serve. He was I think he was an older gentleman, or something happened. I remember from a letter last month, or maybe earlier this month, when this was discussed previously, that there was a footnote that explained that he never actually served in his post at the higher rank that he was given. And so this whole problem became moot because Putnam didn't actually take up the rank he was given. But for a time, in the early formation of the army, this was a problem for the generals from Connecticut. So that's what this is all about. Footnote number 4. Washington appointed Thomas Mifflin quartermaster general on 14th of August. Stephen Moylan mustermaster general on 11th of August. And Ezekiel Cheever commissary of artillery on 17th of August. Footnote number 5. On Bant. See John Adams to Washington, June 19th or 20th of June, note 4. I think I read that, so you can go find that video where I read it. Both Benjamin Hitchborn, John Adams' letter carrier, and Perez Morton were lawyers. On the latter, see Sibley Shipton, etc. The Massachusetts delegation was divided over... Oh, this is footnote number 6. The Massachusetts delegation was divided over the appointment of generals, especially Lee. Moreover, Cushing had written back to Massachusetts a very disturbing letter, James Warren to John Adams, 11th of June, which I read, so you can go back to that video and read it. Footnote number 7, the resolution on defending trade, which passed on 18th of July, was one of a series of resolves stemming from the report of the Committee on Improving the Militia. The resolution on opening the ports was considered on 21st and 22nd of July, but was tabled, and apparently no further action was taken at this session. 2 draft resolutions in the hands of Benjamin Franklin and Richard Henry Lee, both calling for the closing of all customs houses and the admission of the ships and goods of all nations duty-free, are in, etc. Footnote number 8, Miss Warren's letter of 5th of July, above. You can go find that letter where I read it on the 5th of July. Now, let's get to the letters John Adams wrote to his wife, Abigail Adams. Okay, first, I don't know why he wrote 2 letters on this date, but maybe the footnotes will explain. To John Adams to Abigail Adams, July 23rd, 1775. My dear, you have more than once in your letters mentioned Dr. Franklin, and in one intimated a desire that I should write you something concerning him. Dr. Franklin has been very constant in his attendance to Congress from the beginning. His conduct has been composed and grave, and in the opinion of many gentlemen very reserved. He has not assumed anything, nor affected to take the lead, but has seemed to choose that the Congress should pursue their own principles and sentiments and adopt their own plans. Yet he has not been backward. He has been very useful on many occasions and discovered a disposition entirely American. He does not hesitate at our boldest measures, but rather seems to think us too irresolute and backward. He thinks us at present in an odd state, neither in peace nor war,
neither dependent nor independent, but he thinks that we shall soon assume a character more decisive. He thinks that we have the power of preserving ourselves, and that even if we should be driven to the disagreeable necessity of assuming a total independency and set up a separate state, we could maintain it. The people of England have thought that the opposition in America was wholly owing to Dr. Franklin, and I suppose their scribblers will attribute the temper and proceedings of this Congress to him, but there cannot be a greater mistake. He has had but little share farther than to cooperate and assist. He is, however, a great and good man. He has had but little share farther. I wish his colleagues from this city were all like him, particularly one whose abilities and virtues formerly trumpeted so much in America have been found wanting. Oh, that's a little cryptic. There is a young gentleman from Pennsylvania whose name is Wilson, whose fortitude, rectitude, and abilities too greatly outshine his master's. Mr. Biddle, the speaker, has been taken off by sickness. Mr. Mifflin is gone to the camp. Mr. Morton is ill too, so that this province has suffered by the timidity of two overgrown fortunes. The dread of confiscation or caprice, I know not what has influenced them too much, yet they were for taking arms and pretended to be very valiant. This letter must be secret, my dear, at least communicated with great discretion. Yours, John Adams. He says that because there was actually he's not allowed to talk about this stuff. There was I think a Continental Congress was sworn to secrecy. They weren't going to say these things to anyone. So John Adams is being cheeky here by sort of giving these secrets away. He meant John Dickinson. That's who this. I said it was cryptic. I wish his colleagues from the city were all like him, particularly one whose abilities and virtues formerly trumpeted so much in America have been found wanting. That is John Dickinson. Okay, footnote number 2. On 6th of May, 1775, the Pennsylvania Assembly had added 3 men to its delegation in the Second Continental Congress. Ben Franklin, who had just arrived from England, Thomas Willing, a rich and conservative merchant in Philadelphia, and James Wilson, a lawyer in Carlisle. Of the 6 who had been elected earlier, John Adams mentions here that Edward Biddle and John Morton were ill too much of the time to be of much service, and that Thomas Mifflin had gone into the army. Though John Adams does not mention them specifically, the other 2, besides Dickinson, Charles Humphreys, a Quaker, and George Ross of Lancaster, were relatively inactive members. The quote, 2 overgrown fortunes, end quote, who dominated the Pennsylvania delegation were therefore Dickinson and Willing. Finally, let's end with this letter. John Adams to Abigail Adams, 23rd of July, 1775, Philadelphia. My dear, have only time to send by this opportunity a token of remembrance. The fast was observed here with a decorum and solemnity never before seen ever on a Sabbath. The clergy of all denominations here preach politics and war in a manner that I never heard in New England. They are a flame of fire. It is astonishing to me that the people are so cool here. Such sermons in our country would have a much greater effect. I hope to see you ere long. You have stirred up my friends to write to me. Austin, Tudor, Rice have wrote. Dr. Tufts wrote me an excellent letter and very particular intelligence. I am yours, etc. My love to all the children. Footnote number 1, called for the Continental Congress and observed on 20th of July. I read the call for that fast back in June, so you can go find that resolution. It's a day of humiliation. That was, I believe, early June 10th, June 15th, something like that. Maybe even, sometime around then, maybe June 20th. So maybe mid-June, mid to late. Footnote number 2, 2 words obscured by a heavy ink blot. Footnote number 3, all 3 letters are in Adams' papers and printed in Papers of John Adams under authorship of Austin, Rice, and Tudor on 7th, 14th, and 19th July, respectively. Footnote number 4, dated 3rd of July and printed above.
Okay, those are the letters from July 23rd, 1775. And if you liked them, please give me a like and a subscribe, and we'll see you tomorrow. All right, bye.